right, everybody, welcome to Sydney Safe Space Podcast. This is where you go for anything sports related, culture related, politics, entertainment. We have it all. Today, I have a guest with us. He goes by, is it Austin Off Script or is it Dr. Julio? Which one do you
I
prefer?
tell people it's either one, right?
Okay.
It's either one. So whatever name sticks the most. But I'll open my show with Dr. Julio of Austin Off Script. Because
Gotcha.
as I always tell people, it's just a nick. Remember, folks, it's just a nickname. Relax.
Right.
So you have to
It's
tell
not
people
that
that in the
deep.
social media world nowadays.
Right. Okay. So, I kind of want to know, I mean, you did say this a little bit before we started recording, but you've been doing this for 3 years?
Yes, I have. I've
Gotcha.
been in the content creation world for about 3 years. I got into it because of Clubhouse, ironically, and
Oh, okay.
the interesting thing about Clubhouse is it fostered it, or rather, it allowed me to foster a really unique connection with a lot of different people. So, one of the largest rooms I did on that app was discussing the. I don't know if you remember. It's been a couple years at this point. The Lil Nas released a video, the Montero music video
Uh-huh. Yeah,
that was
yeah,
had him dancing on the devil, that kind of thing. So I
yeah.
had about 1,500 people in that room concurrently all at once, and among the audience members were Lakeith Stanfield and Eamon Joseph, for those of you who
Okay.
watch Snowfall, he played Unc on Snowfall. That room let me know then that show let me know that I had something that was really unique.
Mm-hmm.
I brought something to the podcast world, to just the conversation world in general, because I have a very Christian centered mindset and viewpoint, and I don't know that anyone in the content sphere had actually been able to stand on religious principles in the way that I try to,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point where that was the first time anyone had ever sent me a cash app as a thank you, or sent me a tip to say, hey, we
Really?
love what you made. We love the points you made in the room. And Eamon Joseph and I actually became friends off of that. And later on, because of Clubhouse again, became very good friends with Amber Rose, of all people, to where
Wow.
we now speak on and off Clubhouse. I talk to her at least twice a week. And so it's definitely something that was what got me started 3 years ago in 2020. The pandemic
Mm-hmm.
produced a lot of podcasters, yes, but it definitely
I'm
showed
one of
me.
them.
Right there, there we go. Right. So it definitely showed me that I had something that was unique. Uh,
Right.
but that's what gave me the start.
Okay, I just want to say how fast the very, very fascinating story. I feel like maybe it's not, I just don't know anybody who's kind of blown up through like Clubhouse. So I think that's very that's pretty cool. Um And so another thing I noticed in your videos, right? Though you referenced that you are Christian based, you're also very objective. Like I like how you use like statistics and things to make your points, right? And I mean, I feel like I don't know if this is accurate. Maybe you've been blowing up this entire time and I just didn't know, but I've noticed that you've started to grow a lot on TikTok. That's where I actually discovered you. So
Mhm.
is this like recent? Are you noticing sort of like an uptick? Is this sort of you maybe branching out in a way?
It's not necessarily that it's recent. So my content mentor, well, it is recent. I should let me rephrase. My content mentor, Nicole Michelle, who I class, she
Mhm.
actually is a femininity mentor.
Okay.
And she trains women in relationships on how to be wives. And she had
Okay.
actually told me that because TikTok has a younger audience, more around my age, to take
Hmm.
some of the content that I have already on Clubhouse and YouTube and move it over to TikTok, which the audience is younger and they're more engaging typically. And you make
Right.
videos and stuff of that nature. And she said that, you are so used to Clubhouse where it's audio centered, but
Hmm.
you also possess the image to say the same things you say on Clubhouse, but with the camera being on you, it gives you an extra level of authenticity and it makes you more relatable. And people are going to want to tune in because, let's be honest, in the social media world, you have to have the image. You have to have.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with Kevin Samuels, right?
Very.
So you have to have that. And the one thing that brother had over a lot of other podcasters, content creators that were in his same field, the man was always well put together. Like him, love him,
Yes.
hate him, the man was always well put together. And as a man
Yes.
that loves wearing suits and stuff, myself, um, it was an easy transition. And what I did
Hmm.
not expect, Sydney, was that I would carry over the same love of the same love. I would get the same love on TikTok. I wasn't expecting it. So I did explode, I think, on TikTok, and it's now sort of starting to carry over. I'm seeing a lot of my content on TikTok being used on channels like Cynthia G, and even if I'm seeing my content plastered on the shows of other huge content creators.
Right.
So it's definitely something that I appreciate.
Yeah, and I feel like you're very unique in that you have like this sort of broadcaster like delivery. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like when I'm listening to you or watching you that I'm like listening to like a real radio show, if that makes sense. I don't know if anybody else has ever said that. So I'm kind of wondering, like, is that like do you have any like training in this field? Is this just like how you are?
My training came from a man from Nazareth that died 2,000 years ago. The voice, all of that is a gift. I take absolutely zero credit for it. I have been a professional speaker though since I was 8 years old. That was how I first discovered my talent. It was thanks to my mother. So my elementary school at the time was looking for somebody to memorize some of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, and no one had been able to do it at that point. And my mom always knew from the time I was born that my son's going to be something, because I could memorize. I was talking to where others could understand me before I was walking at all. And so she asked me one, and I was always, I used to impersonate other people watching movies and whatnot to make people laugh. Was what I enjoyed doing. But she asked me once if I could memorize, if some of Dr. King's speech. And I said, well, Mom, what does he sound like? Can I hear a clip of him talking? And as I'm listening to him say that I have a dream speech, the first thing I said was, well, I can't get my voice sound like this. This guy's old, but in listening to him, I was able to kind of get my voice as close to his as possible. Right. And that is where my career as a speaker started. And so that's the only thing that you could say training. I've been traveling the United States, delivering not only his material from memory, because I had to memorize the whole thing, but crafting some of my other material as well along the way. And that's about the only training I received. It was purely in-house. Purely, I absolutely say that the gift I was given was supernatural. I take no credit for my voice at all.
Okay. I mean, I just want to say you are a very, very talented communicator. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on my podcast. I was like, I have to have a long form discussion with this guy, because like he really is so well spoken and everything seems so like put together. And so like, and you make all these points. I'm like, I kind of want to expand a little bit more on what it is that you're saying. But you mentioned being a faith-based, Christian-based podcaster.
Yes.
What do you feel like are the shortcomings of other faith-based podcasters?
What happened with, well, I wouldn't say that there's a problem necessarily with other podcasters. I think that my message is simply more realistic. And what I mean by that is simply this. A lot of Christian podcasters have this thing where, ironically, I have a Bible sitting right here next to me. A lot of it is Bible thumping. And that's what a lot of it can feel like. There is a difference. Right. Jesus was called a friend of sinners, right? You attract more bees with honey than you do, right? And so I think that one of the things that I try to do is make the gospel relatable. All of the content that I produce is really meant to preach Christ and him crucified through the lens of a lived experience. So I in many ways, I see myself as somewhat of the prodigal son, right? And that's a parable in the Gospel of Luke where a father gives his son the money that he's owed from his will early before the father passes away. Son goes, has riotous living, spends his money how he wants, acts a fool, but then he comes to himself and he comes back home. In many ways, I see myself as the prodigal son. So, because I was originally an atheist for many, 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 many years. Although atheist truly wouldn't be the right term, because I always knew there was a God, but the way that my mind operated at the time, it leaned itself more toward the definition of atheism. But as I started to learn, and as I started to study all the religions in the world, and as I studied, or as many of them as I could possibly get my hands on, I began to find that contained within this book is the actual objective truth. But there's a way to go about delivering that to people, right? I think Deion Sanders is an excellent example of that, because beyond the fact that he wears a chain with a cross on it, that he's and he'll tell you he's not perfect, he's not godly, he does things that are not right, but at the end of the day, he understands that there is a God that has order to the universe, and he tries to do his best. And at the end of the day, I think that the only difference with me and others is that the gift I was given, I simply applied in a different fashion. Rather than bash you over the head with Bible verses, I would rather tell you, take the stories of the Bible and deliver them in a way that does not change the core centrality of the message, but simply delivering it in a fashion that is understandable to the new audience that I'm exposing it to. Because I heard a quote once that said, sometimes we must realize that you will be the only Bible others have a chance to read. If they read the gamut of your life, how can you reflect that you at least are a Christian in the way that you conduct yourself? Doesn't mean you got to be perfect, but how are you best doing that? And so my content serves to come with an objective, fact-based backing, because without facts and data and statistics, you're just a talking head with a microphone.
Right.
And a microphone and opinion does not a good podcaster make. So you have to have a little more substance to go with the sayings, if you will.
Right.
That's how I try to approach it.
Okay. And so the question that I really wanted to get into, it's just my screen. Okay. I really want to know your take on how Black men and women are failing each other, particularly as it relates to relationship dynamics, right? Because I think that and from what I've seen in your content, you talk a lot about relationships and such. Yes. And so I kind of want to know how each of us are failing one another.
So the way that my content is structured, it's RPR, right? Relationships, politics, religion. Those are the three topics that I focused on Clubhouse. Those are the three topics that are of most interest to me. Black men are failing Black women in modern society simply for three reasons. I think one, they don't have fathers in the home, and so they don't know how to be men. That's reason 1 and 2. And point 3, they're failing in actually seeking to understand the trauma that Black women have experienced. Black women are failing Black men for the exact same reasons. Without the lack of a father is the central initial problem that exists in the Black community. It is the direct cause of Black men failing Black women and Black women failing Black men. When you remove the central foundational element of protection and provision from a home, that has a damning and damaging effect on both the men and the women involved in the house. That is what my book, Marriage is for Poor People, that's actually its premise. It's a refocusing on the necessity of marriage to save the Black community. The statistical advantages that Black women gain when married, they get a 173% wealth increase, Black women, when they are married. Black males that are married live longer, make more money. Married couples across the United States. What I'm about to say is race neutral. Across the United States, men that are married earn about anywhere from $13,000 to $26,000 more than their non-married counterparts. Now, obviously, there's reasons behind this. Typically, if you are married, you have to make more because you're going to spend more, and you also have to care for a household. You're caring for the other person. So there's a lot that goes into that discussion. Women that are in happy marriages tend to report general overall better feelings of well-being, and they are less likely to suffer from mental health disorders. Children that grow up in two-parent households, which is the household I grew up in, experience, on average, we are guaranteed to earn at least $13,000 more than our single-parent, born counterparts. And when you look at the statistics and the data, we have less disciplinary problems in school. We have less mental health issues, less inclined to commit suicide and things of that nature. So that is the initial condition. It's the lack of manhood. That's it. Because I hold in my worldview and, based on the Bible and other things, men are overall responsible. And any society, when you look at the Black community, and this is what Daniel Patrick Moynihan referenced in his Moynihan report, when you remove the male from the house, you screw up everything. And where men are failing women today is that men don't want to be overall responsible for the community. Not in full. We want it in part because we still want to sleep with you. We still want to produce babies, but there's a price to pay to be the boss, right? There's the saying, pay the cost, be the boss. That's a real sentence. That's a real So you have to keep that in mind when you're dealing with somebody. And I think that's where people make their mistake.
And so because I've been sort of thinking through this and talking about this on my platform, when we is there too much pressure on Black men to be leaders? And when I say that, I mean is there a way that we can sort of restructure partnership in our community, right? Because we sort of have this dynamic where, and I don't necessarily always agree with the whole like Black women are matriarchs, but maybe there's a way that we can sort of share responsibility together. Maybe we need to make relationships more egalitarian in nature so that Black women aren't afraid of partnership, and so that there might not be as much pressure on Black men to be responsible for everything, right? So it's like we're going to share the pressure together.
So here's my response to that. Kevin Samuels did a stream a long time ago, got about 700,000 views. He said women should be hypergamous, men should pay for everything. Is there too much pressure on Black men? Absolutely not. No, because pressure is built for shoulders, not for hips. Every man has built, and what I'm about to say, I'm going to just quote Kevin directly. Every man has to deal with some sort of ism, some sort of racism, some sort of nepotism, discrimination, whatever. We don't care. We don't care. The world does not give a damn how you came up. The world gives a damn what you can produce. The goal of any man should be to make yourself powerful enough to where racism, prejudice of any kind, conflict doesn't affect you. If you get offended by that statement, guess what? You don't want real power. Power is not given, it is taken, it is snatched. And
is it possible, regardless of how much money you make, right? Is it possible to outscape isms? Is that really, because when I say this, I mean like, okay.
It's not possible to escape it, but it is possible to negate its effects, because I don't know if you ever watched the show The Jeffersons. It's an old show. There was
my dad was a fan.
Yeah, see, there was a scene in there where Archie Bunker and George are at a wedding, and George and Archie are sitting by the bar. They're having, the George asks for a drink, and so the waiter comes and he says, "Hey, sir, here's your drink," and gives him a napkin and all that. And George says, "All right, thank you." And Archie says, "Hey, George, that's different. This guy giving you the big yes, sir. I haven't seen that before." And George says, "He's willing to work for me because as long as you have enough green in your pocket, then black can become anybody's favorite color." That's it. He didn't say racism didn't exist. Right. He didn't say that. He said, "Look, this exists, but I have the mitigator. Money is the mitigator of pretty much everything." But that's why it's such a dangerous, it's such a dangerous thing. That's why the love of money is the root of all evil, because yes, it can mitigate problems here, right, on earth. But you have to always be concerned. And that's what our problem is in the Black community. We have, both of us operate in a poverty, both men and women in the Black community operate out of a poverty-based mindset. Both of us do. Black women are looking to siphon off as much resources as they can from as many men as possible because they don't feel safe enough to trust one man to do the job. And at the end of the day, Black men, it's the reverse effect. It's bitches get money, right? That's what it is. So you see, there's a centrality, there's a central issue here, always at play. And that's just that's the unfortunate truth of the matter.
So it's sort of like both groups are trying to exploit each other out of certain things that they believe that they need.
Out of lack of resources, essentially.
Right, yes. Right. Okay. And I think that makes sense, because when you behave with a scarcity mindset, it makes you act like in desperation. It makes you do things that you shouldn't do, as opposed to acting out of like abundance. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense what you're saying. It makes perfect sense.
And so, talking about sort of like the nuclear family, right, and how that is the sort of ideal way someone should be raised, is that just the two-parent household, or does that extend to like the community, right? So not just your mom and dad raising you, but your coaches, your uncles, your aunts. Like, do we have enough of that in the Black community, right?
It does take a village. I don't doubt that it takes a village. The problem is the village is now doing the majority of the raising of the kids versus the actual parents. The village in the Black community has replaced mom and dad. That's our problem. Right. That is the problem. Mom and dad are separated, so the community is going to step in, but there's something internal. I say this as a father. I have a 2-year-old. He'll be 3 in a couple of days. There is something about having both parents to actually learn from, absorb from, because a child is literally the genetic combination of two other individuals. Who the hell is better qualified to raise the child than the parents that made it? The community can do a great job. The community is supposed to do a great job. But damn it, there's something unique about mom and dad. My father is my personal hero because the man was there, right? And not only was he there, I watched this man do everything. I watched him fix cars. I watched him play basketball. I watched him do everything that I saw that I wanted to see. And I watched him be a man. And I used then his template of manhood as my baseline. And this is what we do in the Black community, regardless of what we say. One of the reasons that Black males, I think, tolerate promiscuity and in fact practice promiscuity at such high rates is because all they're doing is watching what their fathers did.
That is true. And you talked about Black single motherhood, right? And you talked about, I remember I watched a video of you where you were saying that like you can excuse, was it having two baby fathers?
Yep.
Two. And then after that, it becomes a little bit ridiculous.
Yep.
But I kind of want to know, do you think part of that could be attributed to just the lack of almost like sexual education? Because I do feel like other groups of people are very promiscuous, but they're on birth control, right? But they're wearing condoms, but they're using IUDs, right? So they have the means, and they also understand that they need to do this. If they want to have fun, you got to protect yourself.
Right.
Do we not have enough of that?
No, we don't. We have sexual education because once you know what it takes to make a child, you are now then sexually educated.
Right.
No child is born today that a woman does not want to keep. Women have access to over 33 forms of birth control. But there's a flip side to this. I do not believe that women are in mass weaponizing children in the effort of keeping a man around. As they say that keep that baby. I don't think we're doing it on purpose. I don't believe that.
Okay.
Not because you have small cardons of women that may attempt that, but you bullshit if you think in mass. I'm going to buy the argument that women are opening their legs to say, well, if I have a child with him, he'll stay. No, they're being told. These men are saying, I'll stay. I'll do this. I don't want to use a condom because it feels good. Bullshit. I mean, we know what's going on. We know the game. Game. It takes two to tango. Women are emotional by nature. When you appeal to a woman's emotions, and men do this shit quite often, when they're appealing to a woman's emotions, women will go for it. And that's why I say I'll give you two mistakes. After two, it ain't on the men, baby. It's on you. Sorry to tell you.
Right.
Because you should understand how to vet after two mistakes. And I say that because, again, I'm a single father. My relationship with my son's mother did not work out. And I've always been very transparent about that on my content. And I say the cure for that problem is, guess what? I will never, ever again produce a child out of wedlock.
Right.
Simple fix. Simple fix.
And so when you said that fathers are sort of appealing to the emotions of the mother, you also said something in that video where you said baby showers are the new wedding in the Black community. So that's what you're referring to, where it's like they're making these promises that like there is a commitment along with co-parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't be a commitment. The only commitment that women need to honor is a wedding ring. It's a ring on his finger,
Right.
Because women carry, and Jordan Peterson says this, women, if a woman doesn't choose you, she's right. You're wrong. She's right to not pick you. Whatever a woman's method of selection is, because they carry the greater risk, they can get pregnant. If you could get pregnant as a man, you'd be pretty damn choosy too when it comes to, and so we have normalized the absentee father. So for many Black women in the community, as long as he shows up, that's enough. As long as he's at the baby shower, that's enough. That is the way. If you ever really looked at and thought about why the hell baby showers are so damn extravagant in our community? Have you ever really thought about that? Because that is the equivalent of a wedding for the vast majority of our women.
I think that's definitely a true statement. And I think I've seen something like, I think it's like prom and baby showers are like over the top because that's the only time people really get to celebrate unions or people get to celebrate, like relationships. But I had a question for you because you do reference Kevin Samuels a lot, I feel like. And I don't know if you defer with him in this way, but do you feel like the standards of modern Black women are too high?
No.
Okay.
That is an area I differ with Kevin on, because Kevin is saying, why don't you just settle for an average regular guy? In what world do average earners typically in mass with people that are not that are that are above average. In what world does above average mingle with quote unquote the commoners? The average black the gap, the wealth gap between black men and black women is doing this, shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening is, though, there's a valuation system. The way men and women value each other in a relationship context is different.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Wealthy men typically date younger women. They typically have access to more attractive women. The problem is that women, and Jordan Peterson has talked about this as well, there's a priority issue. And this goes back to something I said earlier. We created something I've said in my earlier content. We have in the black community a generation of harder women and softer men. Women are outpaced. And now what I'm about to say, taken in historical context,
Okay.
Women of any society have always been more collegiately enrolled than men. They've always been more collegiately enrolled. That has been a historical fact since God knows when. However, we are now seeing where women are actually beginning to outpace men in degree completion.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it creates a situation in which women are out earning men, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. It comes down to money. So you have these quote unquote average looking women that are out earning men around that, they have access to, the men they grew up with and that kind of thing. And so they think that the money authorizes them to then say, because my bank account looks like this, my facial features, my body also looks like my bank account. That ain't true.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. Are you a quality woman because you have a college degree? Yes, you are absolutely quality. However, there is a pandemic in the black community of obesity. Most black women are overweight. Most black men are overweight. And the problem is what happens when you have these honest and upfront conversations and dialogues, nobody wants to look in the mirror and say, hey, we're the problem. You can, in the relationship game, because dating is subjective. It is the only area in the world that I know of where you get to set your own standard. Mm-hmm. So for myself, I work out every day. I work out 4 times a week, minimum 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. Whether it's playing basketball, whether it's in the weight room, I am doing something.
Right.
Okay, keeping my haircut, I'm doing something. Women today have been told that you can get whatever you want. All you got to do is show up and have a working vagina between your legs. Men have been told, long as you have money, that matters. That takes care of everything. No, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Self-work is the key. That's it for both parties. Everything I'm saying applies. This is not bashing women. This applies to both. No woman wants to date a 300-pound linebacker looking some unless that's just absolutely what she likes. By the same token, no man wants to date a woman that weighs as much as Barry Smith or Emmett Smith or Barry Sanders. Mm-hmm. So Kevin was correct on that. The way men value women, we look at physical characteristics first, primarily. Women look at provision and protection, primarily. Physically, I've seen gorgeous women with subpar looking men that have it put together. It's a valuation system difference.
Right. That makes sense. And outside of just the physical work you have to do, right, to look sort of or fit the standard that we have set as a society that is pretty, right? Because we've said that if you look fit, you look like you're active, that means that you're more attractive. Yes. I think, and I kind of want to know your thoughts on this. We don't teach the skills required to be in a relationship, right? And I've noticed it on sort of like both ends of the spectrum, where it's like even and I think his name is Matthew Hussey. He's like a white British dating coach who has talked about how on first dates, right, women should find ways to contribute, in the sense that, like, if you're going to the movies, let him buy the tickets, but you buy popcorn, just to show the person that, hey, I'm actively in this. I want to be a part of this. I want to contribute. And I wonder, on both sides of the spectrum, if we're not practicing these little things that go a long way in a relationship, right? Because if you just sit back all the time expecting to receive, or if somebody feels like there's so much pressure for them to give, when do you learn how to be, when do you actually learn or practice how to be in a relationship with someone?
Well, we live in a situation where you're right. I think women and men should contribute. That's a very interesting point. I'm gonna have to, now you've given me a new content creator to go look at. I think that what we have been taught and told is that it's all about the woman. I teach a different thing on my channel. It's that both of you are the prize. Both men and women are the prize.
I like that a lot. I really like that.
Yeah, I teach a different thing on my channel because you're both. Let me tell you something. The ultimate goal of a marriage or any healthy relationship is it's having children, and so that should be a legitimate give and take thing. right?
Mhm.
That is the bottom line. It should be a legitimate give and take where one person does this, the other person does that. A good relationship is not 50-50. It's 100-100,
Mhm.
where you learn and master the partner. So and this is the thing that I always, it kills me with people that have issues with going 50-50. You're doing this, then a third. It's giving. Let me tell you something. You're not going to be 100% of your best self all the time. She's not going to
Yep.
be 100% her best self all the damn time. But if you both make the conscious choice and you learn that person, if you learn, a relationship is about constantly learning. My father always said a good relationship is about growth and development. And he said,
Mhm.
never marry somebody that's boring. Never marry somebody that's boring.
Mhm.
Marry somebody and deal with somebody that wants to learn, wants to grow with you. That's the key point, right? And
Right.
the net of it is that's what we're missing in today's dating market. We are
Mhm.
more a transactional based sexual dating market, which is why Kevin Samuels SMV was a brilliant terminology, because that's what we're pretty much basing each other off of. We're not looking in the marriage market anymore. No, it's sexual marketplace value nowadays.
Right. Right. And what you said about both people being the prize, I think was so important because the way I sort of look at it is like I play basketball. So I have tons of like, trophies and things in my room. They're prizes and yet I neglect them after having won them.
That's
And
right.
so when you make the relationship the prize, when both people feel like they're the prize, it's like, okay, we have to take care of this thing and we have to nurture it. And
Come on.
like you said, we have to make sure that it grows.
Yes.
And it's really frustrating when I'm having, this type of discourse with people in comment sections, whether it's both men and women. And it's like, no one's getting it. No one's understanding that it's not about like how much money he makes. It's about how do you help each other, because
Amen.
I think that like being in a relationship right now myself, it's like I am nowhere near the same person that I was when I met him. And there are ways in which he has improved my life. I probably wouldn't even have the confidence to be talking to you right now without him being like, just go for it, just go for it. And I think these are like the little intangibles that have nothing to do with his salary.
And see that, but that's how you know you have something worthwhile,
Hmm.
because a good relationship forces you to become uncomfortable in the positive sense. A good
Yes.
relationship forces you to grow in areas that you thought you had maxed out in. It
Hmm.
forces you to grow in areas where you thought, no, I've maxed this out of it. No, it's finding those new passions. It's giving you the license. A good relationship gives you the license to learn more, right?
Hmm.
Gives you the
Hmm.
license to learn more about yourself and about the other person, because you don't really know. And I've always had this theory that God had made everyone in pairs in the universe. He
Right.
made everyone in pairs.
Hmm.
Your decisions impact if you meet the first person on his list or the 70th person on his list.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Your decisions in life impact that. And if you listen intently enough, you will discover that if you find the right person, it's constant growth and development. Going back to something my father has always said.
Hmm.
And that's the real core of it. A great relationship is constant evolution
Right.
in the mental sense, right? That's about the only sense I believe in evolution is that in the way that which we grow and develop, that's it. That's the
Hmm.
key. A good
Hmm.
relationship forces you to evolve your level of understanding because you're bringing someone else into your sphere of influence, your life, your day to day, and
Hmm.
that should influence you to constantly improve.
Hmm. You said something earlier. I'm kind of changing up the topic just a tiny bit
Mhm.
about women being like more emotional, right? And I've
Yes.
noticed that I feel like some women believe that that makes them more emotionally mature.
Mhm.
And so I kind of want to know if you feel like women are actually making the effort that they believe they're making to be good partners.
Some of them are and some of them aren't. That's the honest answer. I can't
Mhm.
mince words there. Some women are capable of being excellent partners. Some of them are they operate as if the world revolves around them. Some men
Mhm.
do the same exact problem, same exact thing.
Right. Right.
Women today, a lot of women today, it's me, 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 me. You know, they think that because I'm a woman, hear me roar, that's enough. No,
Mhm.
no. Women think that a man is supposed to cater to them. And guess what? Those are the women that never change that mindset. The women that think that everything is about them. Those are the ones that I would actually say deserve to die alone. Because
Mm.
no healthy relationship, no healthy dynamic operates with that high level of narcissism already injected into somebody's personality. That's
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yep. That is very true. And then on the flip side, what do you have to say for the men who believe that they're not picked because they are nice or who feel like all their options, all the women that they desire are picking, I guess people would call them Pookies and Ray Rays? I don't know if that's the appropriate. I don't know if we should really be referring to people like that.
No. Well, what it is perceived. What women look for is perceived. And again, I'm going to quote Jordan Peterson. I'm going to appeal to authority here. Women look for perceived competence and dominance. So all men need to have the capacity to be dangerous.
Can you expand on what that means? Like,
so
dangerous.
What that means is this. So when we look at, this is how Jordan Peterson broke this down. If you take a young girl in middle school or high school, there's a reason that the bad boy image is so successful in attracting women, because what those males are displaying at that time is a willingness to rebel against authority. It's a willingness to go against what the teacher's saying. It's a willingness to stand up for themselves. And in the eyes of a young woman that's impressionable, she's like, oh God, he's got balls, he's got gusto, and so, but it's perceived. Right. It's perceived competence and dominance. And so when you look at it from today, in today's world, in the dating world, the reason that quote unquote the bad guys finish first and the nice guys finish last, many women, again, due to a lack of a good father figure, they are taking that image as, oh, he can protect me. He can do this for me. He can do that for me. He can, he stands up. He's tough. He's got the tattoos and this, that, and the third. I have a tattoo myself, but that's the thing. It's perceived. But
so adopting, and I don't mean to interject here, but
please.
Adopting that image of the tough alpha, like I'm going to rebel against authority, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to attract good partners, though.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, it can have the opposite. I classify myself as a nice guy. Based on personality, I'm classified as a Sigma. Andrew Tate also is classified as a Sigma. So that is a combination of both alpha and beta male characteristics.
Okay.
But my core is actually alpha. What I actually think is very alpha male minded. But the way in which I operate in the world is Sigma-like, because I understand that a good woman is going to require both a combination of those characteristics. That's just what I mean. That's just what it is.
Right.
And I think that is kind of where people make their mistake in life, is that they don't have an understanding of, okay, this is what I need. Everyone should take a personality test, because everyone has to love and receive love in different ways. But much of the decision making that young women do in their later lives, I picked my baby daddy because he was a bad boy, he was this and that third. What it is really an internal battle with the inner childhood. That's what it actually is. And for the same reason, men cling to women that remind them of their mothers, even if the mothers are toxic. It's a battle with their inner childhood. That's all it is. Bottom line. Someone like myself that has a healthy childhood, I never was worried about women. I was never worried about women. Not that much. My father used to always say that my biggest problem was I was always short until I got very older. Right.
Late bloomer.
Very late bloomer. I was like 5'6", 5'7" when I was in the 10th grade. And then I just shot up to 6 foot 2 inches tall. So, I was never worried about it, because my father used to always remind me, and the way he would say it, son, you a direct descendant of this. So you're going to be fine, and I'm going to tell my son the same thing.
It's funny because my brother is in the exact same position where, like, freshman year, sophomore year, it was like the girls and everybody's just towering over him. Yeah. But now he's in that, like, he's like 5'11", 6 feet, and my dad's 6'2", so he's gonna be pretty tall, and like he's having like the growing pains in your knees and stuff like that. He has like all those problems and everything. But I think what you said makes a lot of sense, that like, because you're coming from seeing like a healthy relationship, and you have that strong father figure, there's not really that innate insecurity that I think a lot of the people, or a lot of the men who see themselves as nice guys, seem to have, where it's like they keep comparing how many women they are attracting to other people without actually even knowing if the women those guys are attracting would be good partners for them. Because it's like, you should want what works.
Is in our community, we care too much about quantity over quality. I mean, if you listen to some of the men talk, it's, I've slept with this many women. I don't care. I look at it like this. Michael Jordan is the best ball player to ever play the game, in my humble opinion. Right. So he won 3 championships. He retired for a year and a half, came back, won 3 more. I look at good women like championships. It ain't but so many of them available.
Yep.
It ain't but so many. It ain't but so many rings that's available. It ain't but so many. So, I don't give a damn about having a high body count. My body count is quite low compared to my homeboys. But the quality, that's what matters to me. It's something different about a high quality woman versus something that's just easily accessible. I prefer the challenging women. I prefer the women that have been raised with a father, that have been raised knowing what standards are. I prefer that, because I have two sisters that's what they grew up around. That's what I grew up around. So it's a different bag that quote unquote true nice guys will operate in. We know we're gonna bloom late. That's all right. Our fathers, if your father's there with you, he instills that level of confidence in you. It's a waiting game. And at the end of the day, we've demonstrated, the market demonstrates that men get their financial peak when they're older, and they also typically get more feminine attention when they're older. They have more both sexual market power and marriage market power when they're older. Women get their power up front. We got to go out and get ours. That's
right.
And if you're attractive enough as a man, that can, as my friend Tony Maceo says, that's a tax write-off. You don't have to have all the money in the world if you have the attraction, if you have the wordplay. Same thing for women. You don't have to have it all together if you've got the looks, but you want to have substance.
Right.
Go with the appearance. That's the ultimate key. That's what separates the good from the bad. That's it.
For those who are, and I don't know if this is within your realm of expertise, but for the people who do grow up in unhealthy households, right? How do you write the track? You know what I'm saying? You're off to a bad start. There's obviously going to be a lot of trauma to unpack, but you can't just give up, right? Like there has to be, once you become an adult, like, there has to be a way to kind of unlearn those things. What sort of tips would you give people?
I gave them two. Pick up this book. Pick up the King James version of this book right here. Pick the Bible up, and when you do so, go to read the entire book of Psalms, but in particular, read Psalm 118. And what that says is, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. That includes yourself. You don't have the capability to fix yourself. So go to get a therapist. Go get the people that God has placed in your life that are capable of helping you through your trauma, and accept that you are not perfect. Accept that the way you came up is wrong. Accept that the way you came up is wrong for your mental health. I'm saying it's wrong for you to live a healthy life if you harbor the trauma, right? Your parents are men. They're mankind, just like you. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to f up somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. The truth of the matter is to seek to dominate control over your own life in the ways in which you can control it. That's it.
I mean, that's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I think also very helpful for the people who have the humility to try and to unlearn these things. I think oftentimes as content creators, we can just focus on what's wrong. But there has to be a way. And there are people, right, who have grown up with bad childhoods and figured it out, So I think with that knowledge, that should help others who are maybe, stuck. But I've run out of questions. This was a great, great conversation. And I really appreciate you taking the time. So can you plug us? You talked about your book. Can you plug us that? When is that already out? Can people purchase it?
So the book Marriages for Poor People is going to be coming out on September the 11th. It's going to come out on my son's birthday. He'll be 3 this year.
Wonderful.
So it's going to be it's 10 chapters. It's Marriages for Poor People, the plan to save the Black community. And you'll be able to find it on Amazon. You'll be able to buy it from me directly. It'll be released via ebook and hardcover, and it will be released September the 11th.
Awesome. And so this interview was actually great timing. It's part of your media, your media
appearances, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And also plug your social media. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on TikTok at Real Austin Off Script, on Instagram at Austin Off Script, and on YouTube at Austin Off Script. And as I tell people all the time, you can also find me on Clubhouse. I'm not on there quite as often, but I'll do a room usually once a week there. And the Clubhouse username is at Dr. Julio. Just type that in or punch in my name, Austin Julio Broughton, and you'll find me there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And for my followers, make sure I know y'all heard that. So his follower count better go up. He has a book coming out September 11th. And as always, remember to subscribe, comment, like, and share this episode. All right. Let me stop the recording.